So hi there, James. My hope is in this video to detail you a little bit about how some of our StorMagic customers are basically transitioning out of VMware. So StorMagic are all about the edge and virtualization and high availability and all of that stuff. We've got some fantastic enterprise robo customers from single node to 2-node, 1,000 gas stations, 6,500 retailers that are actively transitioning and moving across to an SvHCI world. In order to do that, they're obviously using our import utilities to transition out, and I wanted to show you some of that in action today, if that's all right with you.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah, let's get at it.
So, as ever, I like a bit of, that's the wrong slide. I like a little bit of an animation where I can to sort of try and show some of the value add. So what a number of these customers are doing, and it doesn't have to be existing SvSAN users, it could just as easily be vSAN Robo or single node or SimpliVity or hardware SAN or whatever they're using today to transition across to this SvHCI sort of hyper-converged world. The animation that I'm using here is an existing 2-node SvSAN VMware use case. But the powerful thing from StorMagic has always been around flexibility and software, fundamentally. So with a lot of VMware replacement options, the headache comes in that you are having to swap your hardware out, transition to new hardware. And with, one environment, with two environment, that's okay. With a data center, that's okay. When you're in close proximity to that location, that's okay. When you've got 100 remote locations that for each one of those sites you're having to send people out there, you're having to do a box drop, you're having to do a truck roll, as they phrase it in the industry, it becomes one hell of a headache. You're effectively talking about a truck roll to get some new systems in, that transition across to the new environment, and then another truck roll to take the old systems out. You can imagine the kind of costs that that's introducing, and let alone even right now when it comes to hardware supply issues and costs of hardware and ever increasing hardware costs becomes a massive headache to a lot of these kind of projects. So the value out of what we're doing is software flexibility and being able to layer straight on top of existing deployed infrastructure and ease that transition out, and not only that, be able to do it all remotely as well. Okay, so if I make this real, one of my use cases is a number of gas stations, and fundamentally what they're doing is migrating those VMware virtual machines over to one of the nodes in the cluster. They take the node down. This is all done remotely over VPN, over management, jump box, iDRACs, everything else to the systems themselves. They then install SvHCI. Now, our ISO image is about 300 megabytes, so pushing that out over some poor WAN link to that remote system is doable because of how lightweight SvHCI is versus a 5 gigabyte Windows Server ISO to be able to try and push out. You may as well, come back in 3 days' time kind of thing. That's the scenario. So they rebuild that to SvHCI as a single node, set it all up, configure up its virtual networks. Again, referencing about nice to haves, the virtual networking within SvHCI is a very similar workflow to VMware. So they're pretty much recreating that same virtual network topology in an SvHCI world of those different port groups with those different VLAN tags for those guest VMs. And the next step, having configured this guy up, is to use the import utilities. Okay, so with that, fundamentally, they kick off a trigger script such that the engine within SvHCI talks to VMware and slurps that data across, all while the virtual machine is live within VMware. Okay, so we can do a cold import. Most of my customers now are actively using the warm import. So what that does is effectively stream the data out such that you can control with a short cutover period when that VM is shut down in VMware and powered on in an SvHCI world. So really powerful stuff to be able to ease that transition out, because if you think about a gas station or a grocery store, kick off that data import, that VM import, in production hours with the VM live. You get to 1 o'clock where you've got your cutover window, shut it down in VMware, bring it back up within 5 minutes up in an SvHCI world, and you're back in production, ready for the next day. Let's make that real with another use case that's a manufacturing customer of mine, 200 terabytes. They get a 4-hour downtime window a month. Ain't no physics that can get 200 terabytes across in 4 hours. So being able to do that as a warm import in production and choose that cutover window within that 4 hours to bring those 40, 50 virtual machines across into an SvHCI world is a massively powerful enabler. They wouldn't be able to transition out of VMware if it wasn't for that warm import. So having done that, and they're running in SvHCI, they rebuild the other server to SvHCI and protect the VMs. Okay, so really, really powerful stuff to effectively enable that whole thing to take place in these edge locations, because software flexibility to layer on top of existing infrastructure, negate the cost of the hardware, do it all remotely, do it all in network within that remote environment, and do it all then with as minimal disruption to the applications and the workflow as possible. So that's the animations and PowerPoint. Enough PowerPoint. Can I show you some real stuff, James? Is that all right?
Let's get into it. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Get into it. So fundamentally, one of the first pieces just to flash up is our support portal, support.stormagic.com. All of this is fully documented in here. The trigger script, as it were, is this piece here. Forgive me, as I managed to scroll straight past it. That details out, and I'll show you this in action here. The actual file itself is attached to the bottom of the dock. It's also in all of the download packages. So if you're looking to leverage that, you'll see that's a 10 kilobyte trigger program. The actual work all happens in network, SvHCI to VMware to be able to do that transition, okay? But you're effectively triggering it such that you can do it remotely, and you can do it even with a list of VMs to sort of start that transition across. Really straightforward stuff, okay? So with my systems, what I have here is a Windows 2025 VM within a VMware environment. And I'm actually going to show here, it's running on host 1. Now, you'll see within my import script here, let's go, forgive me, trying to flash different bits and pieces up, but VM underscore import.py-h. Let's do that first and foremost to run the program. We've got different switches, and here we state vSphere. Okay, so this thing can talk to a vCenter. It can also talk directly to a host. When you're talking directly to a host, you can talk to any VM kernel adapter. Okay, so I'm referencing this because a lot of my customers actually do something similar to, and I'm hoping to flash up a quick diagram for a second, something similar to this when it comes to the networking, and that is a back-to-back, okay? Now, I'm referencing that because maybe your workload is doing all its stuff out the front, and for that VM import, you don't want to impact that production workload. So what you can do is specify a VM kernel on this direct attach cable and slurp directly over that. So for example, make that real, that's a 1 gig connection out the front, maybe that's 10 gig DEC, it means that you can import at 10 gig speed, not bottlenecking on the 1 gig wire. So again, really powerful stuff from a flexibility perspective. So here's my VM that I'm going to import. Let's just pull up something and show you that it's here and live and doing its stuff. I can work with it, I can do its thing. To flash up what I'm going to do, if I have a look at my VM kernel adapters here, I've got this 172 network that I'm going to effectively pull that across. I also have an SvHCI system here. This is a DL145 from HPE. And if I come across to here and my networks, we can see that this guy also is on that 172 subnet. I can do a quick ping across with my network tools to make sure that the systems are all chatting okay and that what I'm professing to do is actually going to do something. Hey, look, I get a nice ping test across. I can do different things. So with my virtual machines here, I can see that I've got a couple of VMs, but let's trigger that import of that Windows 2025 across. So if I come back here, all powered on, I'm now going to come back to this thing and I'm going to come along and effectively punch in the different details that trigger my SvHCI node to start that import of that workload, okay? So I'm going to paste that. If I could even do a copy and paste. I can't drive a computer, James. What's going on? It's too complicated. So that was a quick copy and paste off my screen there, but fundamentally you can see I'm specifying the SvHCI host name that's going to do the work, the credentials for that, and obviously you could pass that in if you were a bit more secure conscious than I am being lazy here as secure passwords through standard Python stuff. And then you're passing in your vSphere details. So I'm passing in that 172 VM kernel to come in over that direct attach lead. Okay, we can then see the credentials for my host as I'm logging in as root here, but could easily be that administrator at vSphere.local if I was talking to VMware. The VM name to import across, where I want to do it, and then those key flags that are new. So what we did was have a cold import in prior releases. with 2.4 that went live about a month or so back, we enabled this warm import as well. We can also see this -- power. Now, there's one additional piece in here that I'm not using, and that's this threshold. Now, that means it's going to automatically cut over when there's a certain amount of data left. But actually, most of my customers who have been using this, and they've been using this with pre-release code and getting their projects moving forwards, are not using that because the key piece is they want to control when that cutover happens. They want the import sort of sitting there, chuntering away, ticking away in the background, to then get to their cutover window that they want to be able to shut things down and it be as minimal impact as possible. So we'll kick that guy off first and foremost from my trigger script. Although, as we can see, it's got various safety checks in there to make sure that it's actually going to be able to do what it needs to do. And in this instance, that's around the amount of capacity that I have on there. Let us remove that additional disk. My apologies, that's me being lazy. And try it one more time. So one more time, after my little hiccups with those safety checks in there about capacity on where they're going to go and whether stuff already exists and everything else, that's a good thing for the idiot in the room like myself. We can then come along and trigger that, and we can see that import task started exactly as it should do. So note that it's going from that front-end 1040 network, but it's actually importing over that 172 back-end DAC network. Now, if I refresh this one here, we'll see this warm import task actually triggered successfully after my hiccups and doing its stuff. Now, we're going to see two percentages pop. We've got an overarching sort of task percentage, and as this thing sort of steps its way through and does its stuff, we can then see the disk import taking place. So there's a sort of percentage import. And if I come back to that virtual machines view, let's close out some of these additional tabs. We get this sort of overarching disk percentage import there as it does its stuff. Now, again, the reason that I wanted to do this as a video is because when I'm doing this stuff with the customer, I always like that active feedback as far as what's actually going on the system at the time. So referencing this one, we can see that percentage of the import. We can also then hit our statistics view here, and we can get a feel for that data copy coming in with those writes to the disk as it does its stuff. So here I'm running over 1 gig wire, forgive me, but this will go up to a maximum of about 90, 100 megabytes per second. What I can also do for your own interest is come to the host view within a VMware and view which NIC it's coming out of. This is always quite an interesting one. So if we select the network, we can do our received and transmitted, and we can select all those different NICs. We can see if I do latest here, that VMNIC 5 is doing that transmit, that receive there at 100 megabytes per second. And if I go back to that same view on my virtual networking screen that I had up just a second ago, we expand this guy out. Hey, look, that's coming over that VMNIC 5 and that 172. So that's effectively, graph data copy proof that it's coming over that specific back-to-back storage network to do its stuff versus coming over that front end. So again, my main emphasis there, James, is I'm triggering it remotely. There's no need for a man on the ground or a woman. But that data copy happens in environment, in LAN network. And not only does it then, could it be over that management network, but I can also specify what network I want it to do that work over so that I can be as least impactful to my production workload as possible. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we have a refresh here one more time, I've got a relatively small demo disk going on, but there you can see that sort of crank up to that 100 megabyte per second. And we can see this, we'll trigger another quick refresh here. We can see that coming up to that sort of 70%. Now, when this gets to a good point, that it's happy, it's chuntering away in the background in my production hours, my VM, just to be clear then, let's flip back here. And to that console view, still powered on and live and ready to do its stuff. If I knew my own passwords. Don't type when you've got an audience, James. It all goes to pot every time.
The pressure.
Yes, the pressure is too much for me. My point is VMware still live in production, data copy happening in the background, but this thing will then get to 80%. Okay, the overarching task getting to, oh look, wait for it on a refresh, 80%. And we can see this piece here of it sitting there with that shutdown required and that iteration. Now what's going on here now is having got the majority of the data across, if I come to my relevant section, which is this one here, that one, there we go. What we're doing in the background is fundamentally a snap of the VM, a data copy, delete the snap, snap, data copy, delete the snap, snap, data copy, delete the snap. So it's change block tracking. It's keeping the data as synchronized as it can do until we're ready to do that cutover period when we choose, when we want to do it. Okay. So what I'm going to do here then is a guest OS shutdown. And I'm doing this in here because I've taken VMware Tools out of this box already. And we'll see this then power off. And because I passed in that -- power flag, we'll then see my VM automatically come up in an SvHCI. If we left that flag out, it would be off, and I could choose when I wanted to power it on. But here we can see, as that just tidies itself up. Stuff. Here we go, refresh this one. Not quite as quick as you want. See, I said about responsiveness, didn't I, and where to look for these different things. Just refresh that one while we're waiting. We can see that data copy all completed there in the background over that period. We can also, just as an FYI, see, oh look, my VM created, and the different sort of bits going on as it adds those disks within that history. And we can refresh here and we can see my Windows 2025 powered on, up and running in SvHCI. Yes. So if I have a look, see here then, what we get is my same MAC address. So it keeps the MAC address all the same. I'm on that VMXNet 3 and that PV-SCSI controller. And obviously I can VNC into this machine and see him up and running, ready to go and do his stuff. Now, there are, a few different caveats perhaps. Maybe you need to re-IP a NIC or something similar. But the same VM, all that data transitioned across, ready to do its thing in an SvHCI world. So as ever, nice and smooth with a live demo. But the main thing being, hey, that's one VM. Say you've got 50. Well, you kick it off. We will do 10 concurrent and do that warm import, get that VM across and bring it across. So it's just a really powerful enabler to be able to be getting those customers across, transitioned out of VMware into an SvHCI. Questions there, James? Did I show everything that you think I should have done?
Yeah, I think so. Well, one thing that did come up actually while you were describing all of that was the progress bar obviously gets to 80%. Is that the point at which it pauses then and awaits your instruction for the cutover? Yeah,
precisely that. Because I didn't pass in that threshold,
yeah.
The overarching task is sitting in that 80%, doing that iteration, doing that change block tracking until you choose when to do it. Exactly that. So the disk is 100% copied, or 99 point whatever the data across, but that overarching task waiting for that human intervention to come in and choose when to switch over.
Got it. Yeah. No, clear. Okay.
Amazing stuff. Okay. Well, again, this is being used actively out there in the wild for 800 sites of grocery, 1,000 sites of gas stations, all these different things. So just really powerful stuff for that in-place rebuild or even just for an existing environment. It's fundamentally VMware. So it doesn't matter whatever the storage is. What we're talking to is the VMware node to transition those VMs across. So there's no blocks, but anybody that wants more interest here, obviously there's the trial on the website, there's technical services team, there's your sales reps. Give us a shout. We can ensure that it's going to be as easy and as seamless as possible for you to make that journey with us out of VMware.